Baby, me down. Okay, let's dance. Let's dance. Let's dance. I'll be back. Me long. OG, this starts for you. Live from Praise for Way International Studios. Okay. Good morning, Lagos, Nigeria. Good morning, wherever you're joining me from. Canada, yours. Japan. We've had people from South Africa. Thank you very much. I think we had someone from China who is a Nigerian. Thank you so much for joining us. And this is PFthinks. This is a daily show which has been on for about 7 to 6 days thereabout. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today? Well, you know, we do it on this show. I have to really appreciate you. Now, yesterday we said that some of us should appreciate our wives. I hope you did as a man. And if you have not done that, it's something you need to start to do because our women, they put in a lot of shift for us, especially our wives, and we need to really, really appreciate them. Now, so far we've been looking at common mistakes married men make, and yesterday we talked about taking your wife for granted, and we say you must learn to appreciate your wife. Now we move to the sixth mistake married men make, which is lack of accountability. Lack of accountability. You know, when I sit with singles who want to get married and they're telling me, oh, person won't get married, one of the things I ask them is never get married to a man who doesn't have an authority figure over his life. I mean, what I mean is don't get married to a man who doesn't have anyone in his life that you can report him to. Because the moment you have a man that you are dating or doesn't have an authority figure over his life, what you have more or less is like a beast. What it means is if he does anything contrary, you have nobody to call him to order. And when there is a man who has nobody to call him to order, then that is a man who may likely go into destruction, you know, because we all need someone, right, to call us to order. You know, when people say to me, I'm accountable to God, I say to them, you know, you're just kidding and you're deceiving yourself because we can't see God. Yes, you can be accountable to God, but you need to be accountable to man. So it was Thomas Paine who said that a body of men holding themselves accountable to nobody ought not to be trusted by anybody. A body of men holding themselves accountable to nobody ought not to be trusted by anybody. Thomas Paine. Now, so when you see the men who have created crisis for our world today, you find men who have nobody in their lives who can call them to order. So when you hear about Adolf Hitler, at the height of his success, Adolf Hitler was almost like God. Adolf Hitler had nobody who could call him to order. So that was why he was able to wreak havoc even across the globe. And you know how many Jews were exterminated on the account of Adolf Hitler. You have people like Idi Amin in Uganda, Idi Amin that are men who have nobody to call them to order, and how they totally destroyed the people, killed people, maimed humanity. If you remember Joseph Stalin, who was alleged to have killed over 50 million people in the whole Soviet Union, you find men who had no authority figure over his life. We presently have a president in a particular country of the world, you know the nation I won't mention, whom seem to have no authority figure over his life, who nobody can call to order. When you see what he tweets about, how he attacks people, you will ask yourself, what time does he have to preside over the great nation, right? Anyone who goes contrary to him is either you are fired or something, you are just going to be blackmailed or something like that, right? So a body of men holding themselves accountable to nobody ought not to be trusted by anybody. So when people want to get married, and I'm asking the guys, who can hold you accountable? Who do you defer to? Who are you accountable to? And he says to me, I have nobody I'm accountable to. I get a bit worried and I get a bit edgy. Now, there are some things you need to understand about being accountable. It's bliss to be accountable because it will help you. Number one, human beings aren't built to be independent. We're built to be interdependent. Human beings are not built to be independent. We are built to be interdependent. Now, we're not also built to be dependent. We are built to be interdependent. What that means is at every point in time in your life, you will always need someone that you can defer to. At every point of expression in your life, you will always need someone that you look up to. We are not built to be independent, right? Wherein we rise to a level where there is no authority figure over our lives. We must have a structure that keeps us in check. We must have people who can call us to order. People can tell us stop this. People can tell us sit down, and we need to obey or defer to them. So humans are not built to be interdependent. To be independent. We are built to be interdependent. Number two, we need to understand that the moment a human being has absolute powers, it will corrupt absolutely and it will lead to his downfall. The moment a human being has absolute power, it will corrupt absolutely and lead to his downfall. A lot of people have had their destiny stifled, have had their lives totally destroyed because absolute powers corrupt. Absolutely. Once there is no checks and balances, a tyranny is what evolves. So when you see leaders who became tyrannical, leaders who killed people at will, destroyed people, messed up families, destroyed lives, you will find people who had absolute power, wherein nobody could correct or control them. I love nations where nobody's above the law, but when a leader becomes above the law, maybe he seized power he got into power through the power of gun. What you will have eventually is someone who cannot be called to order. And when you have someone who cannot be called to order, you are going to have someone who will make life miserable for people, someone who is going to destroy people, right? Everyone needs that one person in his or her life that can call him to order, and the absence of that figure can spell doom for a man. If you check a lot of men who have been destroyed across history, if you check a lot of men who have destroyed people, messed up people all through history, you will find men who have no authority figures over their lives. You will find men who were not accountable to anyone, men who have no one in their lives who could call them to order. The moment you as a man or you as a husband, there is not one that figure, you don't have that one figure in your life who strikes fear into you, in quote, someone you defer to, someone who is like your leader, who can tell you, I want you to sit down for the next 6 months and do nothing, and you obey them. The moment you don't have that person in your life, you will begin to misfire. If you look at the world through this COVID-19 period, you will find a lot of leaders who are saying things that doesn't make sense, who are peddling a lot of lies and propaganda, the question you ask is, don't they have authority figures who could call them to order? Many of them are creating more crisis, saying to the world that there is no COVID-19, because of their own selfish interest in quote, enlightened self-interest. And what you find is a situation where people should wear masks and not wearing masks. People who should keep safe and not taking precaution, because especially in Africa where we believe more in religious leader. So everyone needs that one person is in his or her life who can call him to order. The moment you don't have that figure in your life, it often spells doom for a lot of people. Sorry, I'm trying to get my Instagram audience on board this morning. I don't know what's happening to the connection right now. The moment there is no one in your life, your wife can report you to, then you have entered what is called a beast mode. A beast mode is what happens when a man outgrows a system or when he outgrows a structure of accountability. A lot of men have entered that beast mode where nobody can call you to order, where your wife has no singular person. I mean, I sit in therapy with a lot of married women who I ask them, so your husband is beating you and doing all of these things, who can you report him to? And they said there is nobody. The only person that can talk to him is his father, and that person is dead. The moment there is only one person in your life that people can report you to, and the person is dead, that is a beast mode, which means you have outgrown every human structure that can keep you in check. You have outgrown every human accountability system. Now, what happens is you have gotten back to you have gotten back to nature, which is wherein it's become survival of the fittest, right? Which is life in the jungle. That is beast mode, where the lion can kill any other animal. There is no consequence, because at that level, it's a survival that drives human behavior. So when a man enters a beast mode, that is a man to be feared. That is a man to be afraid of. And sometimes you realize that the safest place is for the women to move away, because if they don't, many of them have gotten killed. Because the moment a man slaps you and there is nobody to report him to, he tries to strangulate you and there is nobody to report him to, if you persist in that environment as a wife, you will most likely get killed, and then there will be no remedy. You will go to jail, but you had the opportunity of living in an abusive environment. You refuse to activate your human power, which is the power of choice to stay away from an environment that is toxic, that can kill you, right? So you need to watch out for men who have entered that beast mode. Those are dangerous men. Now, you cannot claim you're accountable to God without being accountable to men. So when you see a man who says things like, I am only accountable to God, that's a man to run away from. Don't fall for his spirituality. I was talking to a couple who the two of them were going through marital crisis, and I've been working with the wife. So I called the husband, and the husband, the first thing he said to me, he said, Mr. Praise, marriage is between God, man, and wife. Marriage doesn't involve a third party, right? I knew that guy was a guy who had entered a beast mode, because he claims to be accountable to God, but he has taken his wife to Third Mainland Bridge in Lagos, Nigeria, and told her to jump in the middle of the night before. He's a guy who had leaked, the nudes of his wife at some point in time, but that same guy says he's only accountable to God and not accountable to man. That lady eventually had to run for her life, because when people say under a religious guise, I'm accountable to God, I'm accountable to God, any man who is accountable to God and not accountable to man is not accountable at all. If I take you back to what Thomas Paine said, he said, a body of men holding themselves accountable to nobody ought not to be trusted by anybody. A body of men holding themselves accountable to nobody ought not to be trusted by anybody. So here are a couple of facts about accountability. Number one, accountability is the hallmark of the strong and not the weak. The truly strong are accountable. The weak don't want to be accountable to any man. So when you see a man who says he's not accountable to anybody, or who there is nobody in his life who can call him to order, that is a man who is very weak. is very lily-livered, is running away from its shadows, because people without shadows, they are accountable. Number two, a man that wanders away from accountability will often rest in the assembly of the dead. Now, death doesn't mean physical death. It can mean physical. It can mean the death of a company, the death of emotion. It can mean the death. Sometimes it could be physical, right? I love the way I think it was King Solomon who says, "A man that wanders away from home will rest in the assembly of the dead." Home is where you should be held accountable. When a leader begins to steal and his wife cannot call him to order, that is a leader in the beast mode. When a pastor grows to a level that nobody can call him to order in the midst of his error, that is a pastor in the midst of beast mode. Even though he's covering it up under "God told me," you need to run for your life, because when you activate common sense and what he's saying does not align with common sense, you run for your life, because something is happening in there. The man has moved out of truth. He has veered into error. The same way, when you have a husband who has no accountability figure over his life, there is no leadership in his life who can call him to order, that is a leader who is already wandering into the assembly of the dead, which means his conscience has been seared, which means there is nobody who can, he can defer to, right? So you need to understand that truth, because a lot of people have outgrown structure, outgrown system. I see some people set up a board of governance for their organizations, and I see the caliber of people on their board. Many of the people on their board are people that respect him and not people that can talk to him. Now, that is not a board. Those are just, for lack of a better word, glorified servants, or pimps or something like that, right? Or when you have someone who has a manager and his manager cannot tell him what to do, his manager cannot call him to order, that is not order management. Your manager should be more powerful than you, that your manager can actually fire you. Of course, you can also fire your manager, but wherein you do not have someone you defer to, that is a beast mode system, right? So when you have a man who creates a board, and the board cannot fire him in the midst of his misbehavior, that is not a board. That is a man who is deceiving himself, because your board must be more powerful than you. Number three, accountability helps you retain your humanity and preserves your humility. Accountability helps you retain your humanity and preserve your humility. We all have the tendency to be arrogant and to become proud the moment we have no one to defer to. When you are accountable, it makes you human, because a lot of people have transited the level of humanity. They claim they are at the level of divinity. Is a lie. They are not at the level of divinity. They are at the level of what do you call it now? They are the level of a beast, right? Which means they have become less than man. They become a combination of man plus animal, which is manimal. They are at that level where they are not accountable to nobody, right? So they will hide it under the guise of "I'm accountable to God." The moment you check the structure of a man, you check his board of directors. Your board of directors, every human being have a board of directors, consciously or unconsciously. So if the board of directors over your life are people that defer to you, not people you defer to, you lack accountability. If you set up a church or a mosque, and the board of governance in that structure are not people who are more powerful than you, who can fire you in the midst of your misbehavior, you do not have a board. If you have a company and your board are very weak people who say yes sir, yes sir, yes sir to you, you do not have a board. Now, the essence of a board is for checks and balances, is to call you to order, fire you if need be. But when your board lacks the capacity to fire you, you do not have a board. You need to understand that, which is why the moment your wife, your children cannot call you to order, as a father, you have entered the beast mode. As a husband, you have entered the beast mode. Accountability helps you retain your humanity and preserve your humility. Now, number 4, accountability helps your legacy last through generation. If you see men who have endured through all generation, they are men who are very accountable. It was late Billy Graham who said that he will never counsel a woman alone where he is alone. So he said his door must always be open, or it has a counseling space that is all glass that you can see through. You will not hear what they are saying, but everyone can see what is happening there, right? Accountability helps your legacy last through generation. Lastly, accountability keeps you from stepping into a self-destructive mode. The moment you have no accountability, you step into self-destructive mode, or what we call the own goal syndrome, where you score own goal against yourself, but you do not know, because all the people following you are people who are shouting for you, clapping for you, hailing you in your stupidity and in your foolishness, right? They do not see what is wrong in your foolishness. There are so many leaders today who have entered that mode where nobody can call them to order, but they still have a lot of followers who cannot think, who think their leader has entered the divinity space, not knowing that their leader has actually left the humanity space, has become a beast, has begun to do what is not convenient, began to make statements that cannot align with common sense or data or fact. But everyone is still shouting that, oh, this is the man that God has chosen, or man God that God has called. That is how people get destroyed. Now, you need to understand that the moment you do not have people generally care about you, who can call out your foolishness, who can call you to order, you are almost as good as doomed if care is not taken. Now, what are the areas you should be accountable, and who should you be accountable to? Now, you need to be accountable in the area of your emotion. Now, the moment a man is emotionally accountable, then that man will live above scandal. Now, many of us are not emotionally accountable, not because we don't want to be emotionally accountable, but oftentimes because the women in our lives do not have the capacity to handle our emotion or handle our truth. I often say to couples, right, that if you have feelings for another woman and you cannot do mind out and say to your wife, you know, I have feelings for this person, and your wife can handle it and say, oh, really? So what are you feeling exactly? How can I help you? You know, and be playful about it, then you will have a wife who cannot be and who cannot handle your truth. So if you say to your wife, for example, you know, I'm having feelings about this lady, and you say, you know, are you a child of the devil? Are you? That's why a lot of men, you know, don't own up their truth at the level of emotion. Now, at that point, what you need to do is to find one or two other people who you defer to, who you can communicate to at that level. Find people you can be honest with, right? Especially when your spouse does not have the capacity to handle your emotion. There are so many women who will say to me, Mr. Praise, my husband is not talking to me, he's not talking to me. But when he has talked to you, how have you handled it? So one of the things, when I talk about the common mistakes married women make, I will handle that. If you do not have the capacity to handle the emotional accountability of your spouse, then is one of the job description of being a wife, then something is fundamentally wrong. So you need to be accountable in the area of your emotion. You need to be accountable with your finances and your investment. Now, a lot of men died very rich, but their family ended up very poor because they did not know the investments their fathers made, and they did not write it down anywhere. We say it humorously that there's a bank in Nigeria that is feeding fat on dead people's money. Dead people were not accountable to their spouses. I see men who make investments, buy houses that is not in the name of their spouses. Eventually, they die and their family have no access to their investment. It costs you nothing to own up to your spouse or to do joint investment, right? So you need to be accountable in the area of your finances. There are so many wives who do not know exactly how much their spouses earn. My wife knows absolutely everything that comes into my account, right? She has access to my bank account. She can move money, right? Because I know my wife is very prudent. But a lot of us, our finances and our investment is not known to anybody. Now, you need to be accountable in the area of your business transaction. You need to be accountable in the area of your business transaction. Sometimes your spouse may just be the one to save you from a terrible experience, especially when it comes to contract signing or a business that can go bad, because your wife has a capacity to sniff evil from afar, right? She may not even know about the business, but once she begins to raise the alarm, that I don't feel too good about this, you need to pay attention to what she's saying, right? You need to be accountable in the area of your spirituality. The moment you stop praying or you stop deferring to God, your spouse must be able to call you to order, right? So you need to be accountable in the area of your friends, your relationships. Who are the people you relate to with, right? Your spouse has a right to know. Now, who should hold you accountable? One, your spouse should be able to hold you accountable. That's why you married her. If you can trust her with the deepest part of you, which is your sexuality, then you should be able to trust her with your finances, right? Because when problems start, she's also going to be part of the problem, right? She's going to be part of the recipient of the backlash of your bad behavior. Number two, your mentors. You need to have mentors over your life that you are accountable to. Your children, you must be accountable to your children, which is why you cannot shout them down when they try to correct you. Then you must have a group called your Holies of Holies. Your Holies of Holies are your personal board of directors, right? They are the people you are naked with, you are honest with. Now, don't put people in your Holies of Holies who are all your mentees looking up to you. Now, that is lack of accountability. If the people in your Holies of Holies are single girls, single boys who look up to you, who you can confess your misbehavior to, and they have no capacity to correct you, call you to order, discipline you if need be, then you are fooling yourself. You need people in your Holies of Holies who are matured, who love you enough. They can call you out, they can discipline you, but they love you enough to preserve you. When your spouse can't handle your vulnerability, look for someone who can without sparing you, but loves you. Now, what are the steps to accountability? What are the steps to accountability? Number one, define your destination. Define your destination. Where exactly are you headed with your life, right? If all your magnificence come to reality today, what would it look like? What's the highest expression of your greatness and the plan on this planet? What's the highest level of attainment you want to get to in life? It needs to be clear. You need to visualize it and see it clearly. Now, Dr. Miles Monroe says discipline is a decision that is dictated by a predetermined destiny. Discipline is a decision that is dictated by a predetermined destiny, which means our long term should affect our short term. As a matter of fact, your decision you take on your short term should be based on where you want to end up, right? So define your destination. Where exactly do you want to go with your life? Number two, analyze your personal weakness index, your PWI. We call it your personal weakness index. All of us have it. What is your personal weakness? Some of us have a weakness for light complexion lady who are slim, or some of us have, you have a personal weakness index. There is someone capable of throwing you off balance, a particular shape, a particular figure, some people are sapiosexual, which means they are vulnerable to people who are very, very intelligent. Do you understand? So you need to analyze your personal weakness index. If you are vulnerable to a lady who is slim, tall, who is a power dresser, then you want to communicate to your wife to say, you know what, this is the way I want you to dress or something like that, right? And you need to analyze it. You cannot surround yourself with people who fit the description of your personal weakness index. You are susceptible to a failure or susceptible to fall if you surround yourself with those kind of people, right? You need to analyze it and be very, very honest with yourself. If your personal weakness index is money, you need to build a structure around it. If your personal index is women, you need to guide against it. If your personal index is emotional affair, right, or getting carried away, you need to build a system around it. Number three, you need to build proper friendship built on vulnerability. Build proper friendship built on vulnerability. You don't want your friends to be shocked at your breaking news. You want your friends to know and to be able to guide you or to be able to help you build strength in your area of weakness. Number four, identify the people with victories in those areas. There are people on this planet who don't have the challenge you are having or who have overcome the challenge you are going through. There are people who used to have who their personal weakness index used to be what you are dealing with. You need to find them and look for a way to draw inspiration or mentorship from them. Number five, communicate your weakness to your spouse and your support system. Let your spouse know I have weakness with money. I have a weakness for ladies who are tall, dark, and slim, right? Let them know. Not because you now want them to be not to trust you, but you want them to be able to guide you. And if you are a smart spouse, if your spouse says, I have this weakness for blah 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 blah, you will find a skillful way to hold them accountable, wherein you are no longer, you are not vindictive, because some of us can now begin to use it against our spouse, which is why a lot of people are afraid to communicate their weakness to their spouse. They would rather talk to their friends in clubs or their friends at the bar, right? So you need to be able to communicate to your spouse, which is where I say to every woman out there, you need to create an environment that is non-judgmental, where your spouse can be emotionally accountable. A lot of us don't have the capacity to take the truth about our spouse, which is why they would rather not talk to you, because they are trying to protect your sanity, especially when you have you're not demonstrated a track record of handling people's pains. Now, next thing is you create a structure that keeps you in check and aids mastery. Now, having done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, is you now create a structure that can keep you in check and aid your mastery. So if you are going to have a meeting with Talk Dark and Slim, right? You need to tell your accountability people, I'm going for a meeting with this girl. Please ask me what happened at the end of that meeting. The moment you have knowledge that you're accountable to a group of people, it will check your behavior. Nothing scares your sexual urge like communication, right? So you must find those people you can be honest with. Next one, which is number 7, institute a wide cycle monthly session where you are honest about everything. We call it wide cycle system, which is where you stand on a white paper, right? And you are anybody, they can ask you, your inner circle can ask you any question, and you must be honest. It's almost like a hybrid of truth or dare, right? Where they ask you this month, how many emotional affairs did you have? And you must speak the truth. How many people did you connect with who can throw you off balance? You must speak the truth, right? Especially in your area of weakness. Now, it's like a play, but it's a play that has helped people overcome their weaknesses over time. Now, next one is visualize the pleasure of getting to your destination, which ties back to number 1, right? Where exactly do you want to go in your life? See yourself get to that destination. See yourself get to the end of your life very happy, successful, proud of yourself, and humanity is proud of you with a legacy that is not stained or tainted by any scandal, right? You need to visualize the pleasure of getting to your destination, especially for those of us who have a history of being bad boys before. Some of us were very bad, like I was very, very bad, right? You even need more structures and more. We need more structures and systems around us, right? So we need to understand our personal weakness index and build a structure around it. Then the last thing is consistently play truth or dare with your spouse or your inner circle. Your inner circle can be accountable to you and you can be accountable to them. But in this instance, truth or dare is where they get into your emotions and you must speak nothing but the truth. Not the kind of truth or dare that say go and kiss somebody. No. This truth or dare is ecological. This truth or dare is empowering, where you are honest about everything. I know so many men dying to find that person they can be honest with. I hold a lot of them accountable, right? And I'm wondering, an average man out there is looking for a female figure that can be accountable to. You as the wife, you must become that figure, which is why being a wife, it requires a lot of maturity to handle everything you are told without being thrown off balance or without using it against the person who is vulnerable enough to open up to you, right? The moment you can hold your spouse emotionally accountable, you have found a spouse for life, right? But you must demonstrate capacity to handle their vulnerability and their pain. Now, every spouse needs maturity to handle the weakness of their spouses and help them overcome the trauma of their pain. Accountability does not kill. Accountability preserves. Now, I love a quote by Will Craig in Living the Hero's Journey. He said, accountability is the glue that bonds commitment to result. Accountability is the glue that bonds commitment to result. Accountability is the glue that bonds commitment to result. And another person says, this one is anonymous, you either make yourself accountable or you will be made accountable by your circumstances. You do not want circumstance to make you accountable. So you see that guy called Hush Puppy or something. He was making money, but he was not accountable about the source of his wealth. Eventually, when circumstances made him accountable, he was realized that he was a fraudulent guy living large on stolen wealth. Of course, he's been taken to jail. We don't know what is going to happen to him, but that is the way it is. You need to be honest about your life to preserve your legacy. Accountability does not kill, it preserves. So find the people in your life as a husband that you must be accountable to. Build friendship with your wife so that you can be accountable with to her. I mean, if you guys are very playful, you'll be accountable about anything and anything. Your spouse will be able to tell you, you know what? I like that babe. I like the way she dressed. And you don't feel offended, right? A lot of us cannot stand the truth about our spouse. We'll rather have them lie and pretend as if all is well. They are born again or they are spiritual. We cannot stand their temptation. You must be large-minded in which you can stand the temptation of your spouse without using it against them. I hope I have helped you today. Lack of accountability has destroyed a lot of married men. We need to learn to create an accountability system that keeps us in check, that keeps us honest, right? Because the moment you are honest about your pain, it becomes very easy to overcome it or to build a structure around it. Thank you very much for joining me today. God bless you. I will see you tomorrow, God's willing. Till then, keep loving, keep living, and remember that you are a savior. I'm a savior. Together, we're going to solve the problem of our world. Have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.